The Republic of Dagestan, also spelled Dagestan, is a federal subject of Russia, located in the North Caucasus region. Its capital and largest city is Makhachkala, located at the center of Dagestan on the Caspian Sea. With a population of 2,910,249, Daghestan is very ethnically diverse and Russia's most heterogeneous republic, with none of its several dozen ethnicities and subgroups forming a majority. Largest among these ethnicities are the Avar, Dargin, Kumyk, Lezgian, Laks, Azerbaijani, Tabasaran and Chechen. Ethnic Russians comprise about 3.6% of Dagestan's total population. Russian is the primary official language and the lingua franca among the ethnicities. Dagestan has been a scene of Islamic insurgency, occasional outbreaks of separatism, and ethnic tension since the 1990s. According to International Crisis Group, the militant Islamist organization Shariat Jamaat is responsible for much of the violence. Much of the tension is rooted in an internal Islamic conflict between traditional Sufi groups advocating secular government and more recently, introduced Salafist teachers preaching the implementation of Sharia in Dagestan. Toponymy. The word Dagestan is of Turkic and Persian origin. Dag means mountain in Turkic, and stan is a Persian suffix meaning land. Some areas of Dagestan were known as Albania, Avaria, and Tarkov at various times. The name Dagestan referred to Dagestan Oblast during 1860 to 1920, corresponding to the southeastern part of the present-day republic. The current borders were created with the establishment of the Dagestan Autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic in 1921, by inclusion of the eastern part of Terek Oblast, which is not mountainous at all but includes the Terek littoral at the southern end of the Caspian Depression. Names for Dagestan: Russian, Avar, Dargin, Kumyk, Lezgian, Lak, Tabasaran, Rutal, Agul, Sakha, Nogai, Chechen X, Azerbaijani, Turkish, Dagestan, Kumyk, Arabic, Persian, Armenian, Georgian. Geography. The republic is situated in the North Caucasus Mountains. It is the southernmost part of Russia and is bordered on its eastern side by the Caspian Sea. Area 50,300 square kilometers. Borders: internal, Republic of Kalmykia, Chechen Republic, and Stavropol Krai. International, Azerbaijan, Georgia. Water: Caspian Sea. Highest point: Mount Bizarduzu. Maximum north-south distance 400 kilometers. Maximum east-west distance 200 kilometers. Rivers: there are over 1,800 rivers in the republic. Major rivers include Sulik River, Samur River, Terek River, Rubiz River, Avar Koizu. Lakes: Dagestan has about 405 kilometers of coastline on the Caspian Sea. Mountains: most of the republic is mountainous, with the Greater Caucasus Mountains covering the south. The highest point is the Bizarduzu peak at 4,470 meters on the border with Azerbaijan. The southernmost point of Russia is located about 7 kilometers southwest of the peak. Other important mountains are Diklo Sumtha, Gora Adlashuk Elmetsta and Gora Dilt Dag. Natural resources. Dagestan is rich in oil, natural gas, coal, and many other minerals. Climate: the climate is hot and dry in the summer but the winters are harsh in the mountain areas. Average January temperature +2 degrees Celsius. Average July temperature +26 degrees Celsius. Average annual precipitation 250 to 800 millimeters. Administrative divisions. Dagestan is administratively divided into 41 districts and 10 cities, towns. The districts are further subdivided into 19 urban-type settlements and 363 rural okrugs and stanitsa okrugs. History. In the first few centuries AD, Caucasian Albania became a vassal and eventually subordinate to the Parthian Empire. With the advent of the Sasanian Empire, it became a satrapy within the vast domains of the empire. In later antiquity, it was a few times fought over by the Roman Empire and the Sassanid Persians as the former sought to contest the latter's rule over the region, without success. Over the centuries, to a relatively large extent, the peoples within the Daghestan territory converted to Christianity alongside Zoroastrianism. In the 5th century AD, the Samian peregrinations took place from Ukraine to this land. They returned to their natal country by 150 BC. The Sassanids gained the upper hand and constructed a strong citadel at Derbent, known henceforward as the Caspian Gates, while the northern part of Daghestan was overrun by the Huns, followed by the Caucasian Avars. During the Sasanian era, southern Daghestan became a bastion of Iranian culture and civilization, with its center at Derbent, and a policy of Persianization can be traced over many centuries. In 664, the Persians were succeeded in Derbent by the Arabs, who in the 8th century repeatedly clashed with the Khazars. Although the local population rose against the Arabs of Derbent in 905 and 913, Islam was eventually adopted in urban centers, such as Samandar and Kubachi, from where it steadily penetrated into the highlands. By the 15th century, Albanian Christianity had died away, leaving a 10th century church at Datuna as the sole monument to its existence. As Mongolian authority gradually eroded, new centers of power emerged in Kaitagi and Taki. In the early 16th century, the Persians reconsolidated the rule over the region, which would intermittently last till the early 19th century. In the 16th and 17th centuries, legal traditions were codified and mountainous communities obtained a considerable degree of autonomy, while the Kumyk potentates asked for the Tsar's protection following the Russo-Persian War. Despite a Russian loss, the Russians intensified the hold in the region for the first time in the 18th century, when Peter the Great annexed maritime Daghestan from Safavid Persia in the course of the Russo-Persian War. The territories, however, were returned to Persia in 1735 per the Treaty of Ganja. Between 1730 and the early course of the 1740s, following his brother's murder in Dagestan, the new Iranian ruler and military genius Nader Shah led a lengthy campaign in swaths of Dagestan in order to fully conquer the region, which was met with considerable success, although he was eventually inflicted several decisive defeats by various of the ethnic groups of Dagestan, forcing him to retreat with his army. From 1747 and on, the Iranian-ruled part of Dagestan became administered through the Derbent Khanate, with its center at Derbent. The Persian expedition of 1796 resulted in the Russian capture of Derbent in 1796. However, the Russians were again forced to retreat from the entire Caucasus following internal governmental problems, making Iran recapture the territory again. In 1806, the Khanate voluntarily submitted to Russian authority, but it was not until the aftermath of the Russo-Persian War that Russian power over Dagestan was confirmed, and that Iran officially ceded the territory to Russia. In 1813, following Russia's victory in the war, Iran was forced to cede southern Dagestan with its principal city of Derbent, alongside other vast territories in the Caucasus to Russia, conform the Treaty of Daghestan. The 1828 Treaty of Turkmenchay indefinitely consolidated Russian control over Dagestan and removed Iran from the military equation. The Russian administration, however, disappointed disappointed and embittered the highlanders. The institution of heavy taxation, coupled with the expropriation of estates and the construction of fortresses, electrified highlanders into rising under the aegis of the Muslim Imamate of Daghestan, led by Ghazi Muhammad Gamzar Bekan Shamal. This Caucasian war raged until 1864. Dagestan and Chechnya profited from the Russo-Turkish War to rise together against Imperial Russia for the last time. The 21st of December 1917, Ingushetia, Chechnya, and Dagestan declared independence from Russia and formed a single state, United Mountain Dwellers of the North Caucasus, which was recognized by major world powers. The capital of the new state was moved to Temirkhanshura. The first prime minister of the state was elected Tabasaran and prominent statesman. Second prime minister was elected an Ingush statesman Vasangiri Drabagwayev, who also was the author of the constitution of the land in 1917. In 1920 he was re-elected for the third term. In 1921, Russians attack and occupy the country and forcefully join into the Soviet state. Caucasian War for Independence continues. The government goes into exile. After the Bolshevik Revolution, Ottoman armies occupied Azerbaijan and Dagestan, and the region became part of the short-lived mountainous Republic of the Northern Caucasus. After more than 3 years of fighting white movement and local nationalists, the Bolsheviks achieved victory and the Dagestan Autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic was proclaimed on January 20, 1921. Nevertheless, Stalin's industrialization largely bypassed Dagestan and the economy stagnated, making the republic the poorest region in Russia. In 1999, an Islamist group from Chechnya, led by Shamal Bashayev and Ibn al-Khattab, launched a military invasion of Dagestan, with the aim of creating an independent Islamic state of Dagestan. The invaders were driven back by Russian military. As a retaliation, Russian forces subsequently re-invaded Chechnya later that year. Violence in the republic exploded from the beginning of 2010 to the end of 2012. This upsurge led many people to claim that Dagestan was about to enter into a situation of sectarian civil war. Dagestan became the epicenter of violence in the North Caucasus, with Makhachkala, Kaspisk, Derbent, Kashviut, Kislyar, Sergokala, Unsukal, and Sumada all becoming hotbeds of militant activities. Politics. The Parliament of Dagestan is the People's Assembly, consisting of 72 deputies elected for a 4-year term. The People's Assembly is the highest executive and legislative body of the Republic. The Constitution of Dagestan was adopted on July 10, 2003. According to it, the highest executive authority lies with the State Council, comprising representatives of 14 ethnicities. The members of the State Council are appointed by the Constitutional Assembly of Dagestan for a term of 4 years. The State Council appoints the members of the government. The ethnicities represented in the State Council are Avars, Dargins, Kumyks, Lezgians, Laks, Azerbaijanis, Tabasarans, Russians, Chechens, Nogais, Agals, Rutals, Sakhars and Tats. Formerly, the chairman of the State Council was the highest executive post in the Republic, held by Magomedali Magomedovich Magomedov until 2006. On February 20, 2006, the People's Assembly passed a resolution terminating this post and disbanding the State Council. Russian President Vladimir Putin offered the People's Assembly the candidature of Makhachkala Aliyev for the newly established post of the President of the Republic of Dagestan. The nomination was accepted by the People's Assembly, and Makhachkala Aliyev became the first president of the Republic. On the 20th of February 2010, Aliyev was replaced by Magomed Salam Magomedov. The current head of the Republic is Ramazan Abdullatipov. Demographics. Because its mountainous terrain impedes travel and communication, Dagestan is unusually ethnically diverse, and still largely tribal. It is Russia's most heterogeneous republic. Dagestan's population is rapidly growing. Population 2,910,249, 2,576,531, 1,802,579. Vital statistics source: Russian Federal State Statistics Service. Ethnicities. The people of Dagestan include a large variety of ethnicities. According to the 2010 census, Northeast Caucasians make up almost 75% of the population of Dagestan. Turkic peoples, Kumyks, Azerbaijanis and Nogais make up 21%, and Russians 3.6%. Other ethnicities each account for less than 0.4% of the total population. It should be noted that such groups as the Botlik, the Andi, the Akhaviks, the Tses and about 10 other groups were reclassified as Avars between the 1926 and 1939 censuses. The indigenous ethnicities of Dagestan in bold. There are also 40 OSA tiny groups such as the Hinuk, numbering 439, or the Akhaviks, who are members of a complex family of indigenous Caucasians. Notable are also the Hunzaba Kunzal people who live in only 4 towns in the interior. Languages: more than 30 local languages are commonly spoken, most belonging to the Northeast Caucasian language family. Russian became the principal lingua franca in Dagestan during the 20th century. Prior to that, beginning in the 18th century, it had been Classical Arabic. The northern Avar dialect of Kumyk has also served as a lingua franca in central Dagestan. Religion: according to a 2012 official survey, 83% of the population of Dagestan adheres to Islam, 2.4% to the Russian Orthodox Church, 2% to Caucasian folk religion and other native faiths, 1% are non-denominational Christians. In addition, 9% of the population declares to be spiritual but not religious, 2% is atheist and 0.6% follows other religions. It did not answer to the question. Dagestanis are largely Sunni Muslims, of the Shafi'i rites that has been in place for centuries. On the Caspian coast, particularly in and around the port city of Derbent, the population is Shia. There is also a Salafi population, which is often a target of official repression. A relatively large number of native Tatu-speaking Jews, designated by the Soviet state censuses as the Mountain Jews, were also present in this same coastal areas. But since 1991 and the collapse of the Soviet Union, they have migrated to Israel and the United States. These were an extension of much larger Jewish community across the border in Azerbaijan. The appearance of Sufi mysticism in Dagestan dates back to the 14th century. The two Sufi tariqas that spread in the North Caucasus were the Naqshbandiya and the Qadiriya. The mystic tariqas preached tolerance and coexistence between the diverse people in the region. The communist total intolerance for any religion after the Communist Revolution of 1917 also suppressed the Sufi movements. Sheikh Said Effendi al-Chirkawi was a prominent scholar, spiritual leader and murshid of Naqshbandi and Shadili tariqas in Dagestan until his death. The number of Christians among the non-Slavic indigenous population is very low, with estimates between 2,000 and 2,500. Most of these are Pentecostal Christians from the Lak ethnicity. The largest congregation is Osana Evangelical Christian Church in Makhachkala, with more than 1,000 members. Economy. The major industries in Dagestan include oil production, engineering, chemicals, machine building, textile manufacturing, food processing, and the timber. Oil deposits are located in the narrow coastal region. The Dagestani oil is of high quality, and is delivered to other regions. Dagestan's natural gas production goes mostly to satisfy local needs. Agriculture is varied and includes grain farming, viticulture and winemaking, sheep farming, and dairying. The engineering and metalworking industries own 20% of the Republic's industrial production assets and employ 25% of all industrial workers. Dagestan's hydroelectric power industry is developing rapidly. There are 5 power plants on the Sulik River providing hydroelectric power. It has been estimated that Dagestan's total potential hydroelectric power resources are 4.4 billion kilowatts. Dagestan has a well-developed transportation system. Railways connect the capital Makhachkala to Moscow, Astrakhan, and the Azerbaijani capital, Baku. The Moscow-Baku highway also passes through Dagestan, and there are air links with major cities. Conditions for economic development are favorable in Dagestan, but, as of 2006, the Republic's low starting level for a successful transition to market relations, in addition to rampant corruption, has made the region highly dependent on its underground economy and the subsidies coming from the central Russian government. Corruption in Dagestan is more severe than in other regions of the former Soviet Union, and is coupled with a flourishing black market and clan-based economic system. In 2011, Rostelecom started implementation of WDM-based equipment on the backbone network for data transmission in the Republic of Dagestan. Due to WDM introduction, the fiber-optic communication line's bandwidth increased to 2.5 Gbit per second. Rostelecom invested about 48 million rubles in the project. Dagestani conflict. Since 2000, Dagestan has been the venue of a low-level guerrilla war, bleeding over from Chechnya. The fighting has claimed the lives of hundreds of federal servicemen and officials, mostly members of local police forces, as well as many Dagestani national rebels and civilians. More recently, among other incidents, on May 15, 2008, 2 MVD officers were killed and 1 police officer heavily wounded during an ambush on the vehicle in Gubden. On September 8, 2008, Abdul Majid and several rebels were killed in an ambush by Russian special forces. On October 21, 2008, rebels ambushed a Russian military truck, killing 5 soldiers and wounding 9 others. On January 6, 2010, a suicide bomber attempted to blow up a police station in Makhachkala, killing 6 officers and wounding 14 others. On March 31, 2010, 12 people were killed and 18 wounded by 2 suicide bombings in the town of Kizlyar outside the offices of the local Interior Ministry and the FSB security agency. The second bomb went off 20 minutes after the first, as a crowd had gathered. In the early hours of the next morning, 2 people died as a bomb went off in their car, apparently prematurely, near the village of Toterbikala. On July 15, 2010, Pastor Artur Suleymanov, a Muslim convert to Christianity, was murdered by a gunman. The pastor was killed in his car as he was leaving the Hosanna House of Prayer in Makhachkala, Dagestan in the North Caucasus region. According to a religious persecution watchdog group Voice of the Martyrs report, Pastor Suleymanov's church is one of the largest Protestant churches in Dagestan. Christians in the Russian Republic of Dagestan, which borders Chechnya, face harassment and intimidation from various groups. Pastor Suleymanov's life had been threatened on several previous occasions. On September 23, 2011, Magomed Murtuzaliyev, a high-level law enforcement official, was shot and killed by gunmen. On September 28, 2011, 7 civilians and a police officer were killed by a car bomb in the village of Haj al-Maki. On May 4, 2012, 12 people were killed in two separate explosions on the outskirts of Makhachkala, capital of Russia's Daghestan region. On August 28, 2012, Sheikh Said Effendi, an influential 75-year-old Sufi cleric, was killed along with 6 others in a suicide bombing. Effendi, a Sufi Muslim, opposed violent jihad in Dagestan. Notable people: Abdul Kakim Ismailov, World War II soldier; Abdul Rashid Sadyulev, freestyle wrestling world champion; Abdusalam Gadasov, freestyle wrestling world champion; Adam Saitiev, Russia's freestyle wrestler; a Chechen, Russian Master of Sports of International Class, Honored Master of Sports of Russia, 3-time champion of Russia, 3-time champion Europe, 2-time world champion, Olympic champion; Ali Bagautanov, UFC fighter in the flyweight division. Combat Sambo world champion; Bavazar Saitiev, Russia's freestyle wrestler, 3-time Olympic champion, 6-time world champion, 6-time European champion, 5-time Russian champion, 7-time winner of the tournament Krasnoyarsk Ivan Yarygin, winner Goodwill Games Will, honored Master of Sports of Russia. Eduard Puterbrot, Dagestan artist and member of the USSR Union of Artists. Gasray Aliev, hero of Soviet Union. Hizjalov Shalumov, Soviet novelist, poet, playwright. Wrote in Mountain Jews and Russian languages. Israel Svagenbaum, Russian-American artist. Khabib Nurmagomedov, UFC fighter in the lightweight division and the number 3 lightweight in the world according Kuramagomedov, freestyle wrestler who competed for Russia in the 2000 Summer Olympics and won a world title in 1997. Mikhail Mushailov, a painter, a member of the USSR Union of Artists and Israel. Rasul Gamzatov, Avar poet, writer, political activist. Rustam Kabalov, UFC fighter in the lightweight division. Combat Sambo world champion. Sergei Izhyayev, Mountain Dew Soviet poet, playwright and translator. Tamara Muzikanova, a sculptor and ceramist, a member of the USSR Union of Artists and Israel. Tanko Azrailov, ballet dancer, choreographer, people's artist of the USSR. Vasif Melanov, Soviet dissident and political prisoner, political activist. Yargitel Mishiev, honored teacher of the Republic of Dagestan and the Russian Federation, publicist, author of books about the history of Dargin.